before you close your eyes tonight, I want to take you somewhere. Not somewhere far away. Exactly. Somewhere before. Before the alarm clocks and the blue light of screens. Before the long lists of things you didn't finish today. Before the quiet dread that sometimes settles in when the house goes still and your mind decides, for reasons it never quite explains, that now is the perfect time to think about everything. I want to take you to the very beginning, before night existed at all. Settle in. Let your shoulders drop. If you've been carrying something today, and I suspect you have, you don't need to carry it through this story. You can set it down right here, at the edge of this moment, and pick it up tomorrow if you still want it. But for now, just breathe and listen. Before we tell the story of the night, we have to understand what the world was like before it. In the beginning, and the Bible says this with such quiet confidence, such unhurried certainty, as if it is the most natural thing in the world to say, God created the heavens and the earth. And in those first extraordinary moments, the earth was formless and empty. The original Hebrew gives us two words, tohu and bohu. Formless and void. Unfinished and waiting. Imagine it, if you can. Not darkness the way we know darkness. Not the darkness of a bedroom at midnight. Not the darkness behind your eyelids. This was something older than that. Something that hadn't yet learned what it was supposed to be. The deep waters moved, and over them, the Spirit of God hovered, patient, present, already there. And then God spoke. Let there be light. 3 words. 4 in Hebrew. And something happened that had never happened before in the history of anything. Light arrived. Not gradually, not tentatively, not like the slow creep of a winter sunrise. It simply was, because he said so. And when God looked at what he had made, he called it good. Tov. Beautiful. Right. Exactly as it should be. Now here is the part I find quietly astonishing. And I don't want you to rush past it. After the light came, after that first blazing, wordless, magnificent morning, God did something that might seem, on the surface, like a step backward. He separated the light from the darkness. He gave them each a name. Light. He called day. Darkness. He called night. He didn't eliminate the darkness. He didn't fill every corner of creation with perpetual, unbroken light. He could have. This is God we're talking about. The one who spoke galaxies into existence. Who stretched out the heavens like a curtain. Who breathed life into dust and called it human. If he had wanted a world of endless, unwavering brightness, he simply would have made one. But he didn't. He made evening, and he made morning, and together, he called them the first day. I've thought about this a lot, especially in the seasons of my own life when I've struggled to sleep, when the nights felt long and restless and somehow accusing, as if lying in the dark was proof of something wrong with me, or wrong with the world. In those seasons, I used to think of sleep as something I had to win, a battle I kept losing. The darkness felt like a problem to be solved rather than a place to be at peace in. But when I read Genesis slowly, really slowly, the way you read something when you're not trying to get through it, but trying to live inside it, I notice something that reorders everything. God made the darkness first, before the stars, before the moon, before any creature had eyes to look up at the night sky and feel either wonder or fear. Before any of that, God had already decided that darkness belonged in his creation, that it was not an oversight, not a flaw, not something he'd get around to fixing eventually. He named it. He gave it a place. He wove it into the very rhythm of the world he was building. And then he called the whole thing good. There is an old and beautiful tradition in Jewish timekeeping that I find myself returning to again and again. The Hebrew day does not begin at midnight, the way our modern calendar does. It doesn't begin at sunrise, the way we might instinctively expect. The Hebrew day begins at sundown. At the moment when the light fades and the stars begin to appear, a new day has started. Evening comes first, then morning. This is how Genesis counts the days of creation, and it is not an accident. It is a theology woven into the fabric of time itself. The day begins in the dark. The story begins in rest. Before the work of a new day unfolds, there is first the gift of night. Think about what that means for you. Lying here right now, this moment, this quiet, dark, still moment is not the end of something. It is not the tail end of a day that didn't go the way you hoped. The final chapter of a story you'd rather rewrite. According to the ancient rhythm built into creation itself, this is the beginning. The night that is wrapping around you right now is the opening page of tomorrow. It is the foundation on which the next day will be built. You are not behind. You are not failing at rest. You are right on time. Let me paint you a picture of what those first days of creation must have been like, before the night was filled with everything God would eventually place there. Picture a world of breathtaking newness. The land has just been gathered from the waters. Great masses of earth rising from the sea, still dripping, still finding their shape. The first plants are pushing upward from the soil, their leaves catching light they've never experienced before, tilting toward it the way living things do when they find something good and warm and life-giving. The air is clean in a way the air has not been clean since. There is no weariness in it, no history of grief or war or longing. Every scent is the first time that scent has ever existed. Every color is new. The green of the first leaf is so green it would make your chest ache to see it. And then, for the very first time, the light begins to soften. The angle of it changes. It loses its directness and becomes something slower, something golden. Long shadows stretch across the new ground. The temperature drops, just slightly, the way it still does every evening. That almost imperceptible shift that tells every living thing the rhythm is changing. Something is beginning to wind down. And the world, which has no language yet, no names for anything, no categories or concepts, the world simply receives it. The plants don't resist the darkening. The waters don't protest. The new earth doesn't reach out desperately toward the retreating light and beg it to stay. The world just rests. For the very first time, the world rests. I think about that a lot when I'm lying awake and my mind is doing what minds do, spinning through the conversations I should have had differently, the things I need to remember for tomorrow, the worry that disguises itself as productivity, the restlessness that pretends to be responsibility. The world, on that very first evening, did not fight the dark. It received it, not because the darkness was all there was, not because there was no hope of light returning, but because the same God who had filled the day with warmth and color and growth had also designed this, had also said, "This too is good." The rest is part of the plan. The stillness is not an interruption of creation. It is creation doing exactly what it was made to do. You were made to rest. This is not a deficiency. It is not weakness. It is not a waste of the hours. It is the design of the one who made you, built into the very first day that ever existed, woven into the rhythm of a world that was declared good before you ever had a chance to earn or lose that declaration. Tonight, before we go any further into this story, I just want to leave you here for a moment. In the world before darkness existed, there was only light. But God, in His wisdom and His tenderness, chose to give the world something more than endless brightness. He chose to give it rest. He chose to give it evening. He chose to give it the gentle unwinding of a day, the soft permission to stop, the ancient and holy invitation to lay everything down. That invitation is still here. It has been here since the first evening fell on the first day of the world's existence. It is not contingent on how well your day went. It is not revoked by your worries or your regrets or the things that are still unresolved. It is simply here, the way the night is simply here. Patient, unhurried, already present. You don't have to earn the night. You don't have to deserve the rest. You just have to receive it. Let your body sink a little deeper into where you're lying. Let the tension in your hands release. Your fingers, your palms, all the way up through your wrists. You've been holding on to things today. the way we all do. You can open your hands now. There is nothing here in the dark that requires your grip. The world began in the evening. And in the evening, it was good. Close your eyes, if you haven't already. We're only just beginning. There is a moment that happens every single day, and most of us have stopped noticing it. It happens somewhere between 4 and 8 in the evening, depending on the season, depending on where you live. The light, which has been so confident all day, so sure of itself, so present, begins to change. It doesn't disappear all at once. It never does. It transitions. The hard edges of afternoon soften. The shadows stretch out, long and slow, like something breathing out after holding its breath for hours. The sky, which was blue and certain, begins to remember other colors. Amber, rose, a deep and quiet violet gathering at the horizon. For a few minutes, the whole world is suspended between one thing and another. Day has not quite let go. Night has not quite arrived. And in that in-between space, something extraordinary happens if you are still enough to notice it. Everything slows down. The birds change their song. The air shifts its temperature, just slightly. The quality of the light becomes almost liquid, warm and golden and unhurried, as if it knows it has nowhere left to rush to. Even the sounds of the world seem to soften at the edges, the way sounds do in a room where someone has just turned the music down. Not off, but down, to a gentler register. This moment has a name. In Hebrew, it is called Erev, evening, the tilting of the world toward rest. And the first time it ever happened, the very first Erev in the history of existence, God was there to see it. Go back with me to that second half of the first day. The light has been in the world for some hours now. The waters have been gathered. The dry land has appeared. The first green things are already reaching upward from the soil. Creation is moving fast. Not frantically, but with the confident momentum of something being built by hands that know exactly what they're doing. And then God pauses. Not because he is tired. Not because he has run out of ideas. But because rest is not the absence of something. It is the presence of something. And what God is about to give the world is not a gap in the story. It is a chapter in its own right. The light begins its descent toward the horizon. Slowly, the colors of that very first sky begin their transformation. There is no one yet to watch this happen. No human eyes to look up and catch their breath at the beauty of it. And yet, it is beautiful. Extravagantly. Unnecessarily. Lavishly beautiful. The kind of beautiful that tells you something about the character of the one making it. That he does not create beauty only when someone is watching. That the sunset on the first evening blazed with color not because anyone was there to appreciate it, but because this is simply who he is. The light fades. The air cools. And for the first time in the history of the world, darkness comes. I want you to imagine what that first darkness felt like. Not threatening. Not cold in the way loneliness is cold. Not the hollow, anxious dark of a sleepless night in a world full of trouble. This darkness is something else entirely. This is the darkness that God Himself called into being. The darkness He named. The darkness He separated from the light with His own word. The darkness He wove into the rhythm of the very first day. This darkness is intentional. It comes the way a blanket comes. Not to suffocate, but to cover. Not to erase the world, but to let it rest beneath its weight. The new earth, with its fresh-turned soil and its first delicate plants and its gathered waters, settles into the dark the way a tired child settles into a bed that has been made up warm and waiting for them. Not reluctantly, not with protest, but with the deep, wordless relief of something finally being allowed to stop. And somewhere in the gathering dark of that first evening, in the space between the last light and the first star, there is a silence. Not the silence of emptiness. Not the silence of something missing. The silence of completion. The silence of a day that has been full. Genuinely, completely full, and has nothing left to prove. The Hebrew word for rest, the word used when God rested on the seventh day, is Shabbat. But even before the seventh day, even before the formal institution of the Sabbath, there is rest built into the very structure of creation. Every evening is a small Sabbath. Every night is a built-in permission to stop. This is not incidental. This is not something that happened because the planet rotates and physics required it. The same God who set the world spinning also designed what that spinning would mean. That every 24 hours, there would be a return to darkness, a return to stillness, a return to the quiet center of things where He can be found without all the noise of the day getting in the way. Every night is an invitation. Come back. Lay it down. Be still. I am here. Now, I want to tell you something about the first creatures who experienced that first evening. Because by the time darkness fell on day 3, when God had already made the dry land and the seas and the vegetation, the world was alive in ways it hadn't been before. Plants were growing. The first ecosystems were finding their balance. And though the great animal life and the human life would come later, there was already, in that early creation, a world that breathed and moved and responded to its environment. And on that very first evening, every living thing did something it had never done before. It rested. The new grass bent gently in whatever breeze moved through that first twilight. The leaves of the earliest plants angled away from the fading light, not in defeat, but in the natural, unhurried way that living things have of following the rhythms they were made to follow. The waters stilled from their earlier movement and lay quiet under the darkening sky. Nothing in creation fought the coming of the night, because nothing in creation had learned yet to be afraid of it. We have learned to be afraid of it, haven't we? Somewhere along the way. And the process is different for each of us. But most of us have been through some version of it. The night stopped being a gift and started being a problem. The darkness stopped being a blanket and started being a space where all the things we'd outrun during the day had time to catch up with us. The worries we'd kept at bay with busyness and noise and the company of other people, they find us in the dark. The grief we'd managed to set aside during the hours when there was always something to do, it comes back in the quiet. The questions we don't have answers to, the fears we haven't named, the ache of things that are unresolved. The night doesn't create these things, but it does remove all the distractions we use to keep from feeling them. And so for many of us, night has become something to dread rather than something to receive. I understand that. I really do. There have been seasons of my own life when I would have given almost anything for the night to just be simple again. When I envied people who put their heads on their pillows and simply, astonishingly, seemingly effortlessly, fell asleep. When the dark felt less like a gift and more like an interrogation room, every question bouncing off the walls. The silence making everything louder rather than quieter. If that's where you are tonight, I want you to know you are not alone in this. And the story we're telling tonight is specifically for you. Because here is what I keep coming back to when I think about that first evening in Genesis. The darkness came, and God did not fix it. He didn't rush to fill it. He didn't immediately place the stars in the sky that first night. That would come later, on day 4. On that very first evening, the darkness was simply dark. No moon, no stars, just the deep, complete, utter quiet of a world that had just experienced its first day and was now, for the first time, experiencing its first rest. And God looked at this, at the evening and the morning, at the light and the darkness together, and He said it was good. Not the light alone, not just the bright, productive, visible parts of creation. The whole thing, the light and the darkness, the day and the evening, the waking and the resting. Good. There is something in this that I need you to hold on to tonight, because I think it might shift something for you. The darkness in your room right now, the quiet, the stillness, the fact that the world has slowed down around you and you are no longer needed to be anywhere or do anything or perform any version of yourself for anyone. This is not the absence of something good. This is something good. This is what the first evening was. This is what every evening since has carried forward. Like a tradition passed down through every rotation of the earth. every fading of the light, every first star appearing in a darkening sky. This is the gift that was built into creation before human hands had ever made anything, before human voices had ever said anything, before the world had accumulated any of the weight and complication and grief that it carries now. The night is good. The rest is good. The quiet is good. God said so. On the very first evening, before anyone was there to argue with him about it. Let the thought settle over you like that first darkness settled over the first earth. Gently, completely, without rushing. You don't have to solve anything tonight. You don't have to figure anything out. The problems that are waiting for you will still be there in the morning. And in the morning, after you have rested, you will be more yourself than you are right now. More capable, more clear, more able to face whatever the day brings. But that is morning's work, and morning will come. Right now, it is evening. It is the beginning of a new day, in the ancient way of counting. And the one who made the evening, who called it good, who built it into the bones of creation, who has watched every single sunset since the first one blazed across an empty sky, that same one is watching over this evening too. Your evening. This one. Right now. Feel the weight of your body where you're resting. Notice how the darkness isn't asking anything of you. Notice how the quiet has no agenda. The night is not waiting for you to be productive, or impressive, or resolved. It is simply here, the way it was always meant to be here. Patient, unhurried, safe. The first evening came. The world rested, and it was good. You can rest too. On the fourth day, God looked at the darkness he had made, and he decided to fill it, not to replace it, not to undo it. The darkness was good. He had already said so. And he had no intention of taking back what he had given. But there is a difference between darkness that is empty and darkness that is inhabited. A difference between a night sky that is simply dark and a night sky that is dark and full of light at the same time. And so, on the fourth day of creation, God did something that human beings have been tilting their heads back to wonder at ever since. He made the stars. Before we go any further, I want you to do something. If you're lying somewhere with a window nearby, and if the sky outside is clear, I want you to imagine, just for a moment, what it would look like to see the night sky the way it was meant to be seen. Not the way most of us see it now, through a haze of city light, with only the brightest few stars punching through the orange glow above our rooftops. Not the diminished, abbreviated sky of modern life. The full sky, the ancient sky. The sky that a shepherd in the hill country of ancient Israel would have looked up at on a clear winter night. Far from any city, far from any fire large enough to dim what was above him. Thousands of stars. Tens of thousands. The Milky Way not as a faint smudge, but as a river. A literal river of light pouring from one horizon to the other. And so dense and so bright that it cast a shadow. Star clusters like handfuls of scattered salt. The slow, patient arc of constellations moving across the sky as the night progressed, the same way they had moved the night before, and the night before that, going back further than any human memory could reach. That sky, that was what God made on the fourth day, and He made it for the night. Genesis 1 tells us that God made two great lights. The greater light to govern the day, and the lesser light to govern the night. And then, almost as an afterthought, almost too large and too casual to quite take in, He also made the stars. He also made the stars. As if the stars were something God did in passing. As if scattering 100 billion galaxies across the darkness was something He did between other things. The way you might toss a handful of wildflower seeds into a garden while you're already working on something else. There is something here that I find quietly overwhelming if I let myself sit with it long enough. The stars were not made for the day. They were not made to illuminate the hours of work and productivity and forward momentum. The sun handles all of that. The stars were made specifically, intentionally, exclusively for the night, for the hours of darkness and rest. For the time when the world has put down its tools and is no longer moving toward any goal. God decorated the dark, not the light, the dark. He looked at the night He had made, the rest He had built into creation, and He thought, this deserves something beautiful. This deserves something that takes your breath away. This deserves something so vast and so intricate and so impossible to fully comprehend that any human being who looks up at it long enough will eventually feel something loosen in their chest. Some knot of self-importance. Some cramped sense that the world is only as large as their problems. And they will breathe out slowly. And remember that they are small in the most comforting possible way. The Psalms return to this again and again, the way you return to something you can't quite stop thinking about. Psalm 8 begins with David lying on his back. You can almost feel it in the language, the looseness of it, the openness. Looking up at the night sky and simply being undone by it. When I consider your heavens, he writes, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars, which you have set in place. What is mankind that you are mindful of them? Notice what he says. The work of your fingers. Not your fists, not your great and terrible power, not the overwhelming, catastrophic force that parted seas and brought down fire. Your fingers. The stars, to David, were evidence of God's fine work, his careful, intricate, detailed attention. The kind of work you do when you are not in a hurry. When you are making something not because it is useful, but because it is beautiful, and because you want it to be exactly right. And standing beneath this vast, careful, finger-crafted sky, David asks the question that the stars seem designed to make us ask. What am I in all of this? It is not a despairing question. Read it again. There is no despair in it. It is the question of someone who has just been freed from the exhausting illusion that the world depends on them, that their worrying keeps things in motion, that their anxiety is doing important structural work in the universe. The stars remind us it isn't. The stars have been moving in their courses for longer than human memory reaches. They were there before any of your problems existed. They will be there when all of your problems have resolved themselves, one way or another, into the past. They are not impressed by your to-do list. They are not keeping track of your failures. They simply burn quietly and faithfully in the darkness, the way they have always burned, because this is what they were made to do. And somehow, standing beneath them, or lying beneath them, which is even better, the weight of being you, specifically, with all your particular worries and regrets and unfinished business, becomes just slightly more manageable. There is a word in Hebrew, tzaba, that is sometimes translated as host or army, as in the host of heaven, the stars. It is a word used for an ordered company, pay, a group of things arranged with purpose and direction, moving together toward a goal. The stars. In the Hebrew imagination, were not random. They were not chaotic. They were tzaba, an ordered host, a company on assignment, moving through the night sky with the quiet precision of something that knows exactly where it is going. This is the sky God gave the night. Not chaos, not emptiness, not the cold, indifferent void that a sleepless, anxious mind sometimes projects onto the darkness outside the window. But order, purpose, the faithful movement of 100 billion points of light, every single one of them placed there by the same hands, by the same fingers that made you. You are resting tonight under a sky full of intention, full of care, full of the evidence of a God who, when he made the night, did not simply leave it dark and walk away. He stayed. He filled it. He made it beautiful. He made it for you, among others, but also for you. I want to tell you something about starlight that I find almost unbearably comforting, especially in the dark hours when comfort is hardest to find. The light from the stars is old, unimaginably old. When you look up at the night sky and see a star, you are not seeing the star as it is right now. You are seeing the light that left that star years ago. decades ago, sometimes thousands or millions of years ago, traveling across the darkness of space at the speed of light until it reached your eyes in this moment. The star you are looking at may not even exist anymore. It may have burned itself out centuries before you were born, but its light is still here, still traveling, still arriving. Think about what that means. The light left its source long before you were born. It crossed distances that have no meaning in human terms. And it arrived tonight, at this exact moment, to reach you, lying here, in the dark, in need of something to look at that is bigger than your worry. Does God waste anything? Does He allow light to travel for 1,000 years, only for it to arrive at a moment that doesn't matter? The light is here. You are here. The night is here. This is not an accident. Ancient people understood something about the night sky that we have largely lost in our age of electricity and screens. They understood that the stars were not just decorative. They were communicative. They were a language that God spoke slowly, over the course of every night, to anyone patient and still enough to listen. The shepherds of ancient Israel read the stars the way we read books. They knew which constellations marked the coming of the rains, which marked the season for planting, which marked the time for harvest. They navigated by stars, measured time by stars, told stories about stars around their fires. The night sky was not a blank ceiling above their lives. It was a text, written in light, full of meaning. And at the center of all that meaning was a simple, recurring message that the stars delivered every night without fail. To every upturned face beneath them, He is here. He is not forgotten. The same God who set these lights in motion is the God who knows your name. There is a particular quality that comes over a person who spends real time under a true night sky. Anyone who has ever camped far enough from a city to see the full Milky Way knows what I mean. Something in you quiets. Something that was wound tight begins, almost involuntarily, to loosen. The thoughts that were circling begin to slow down. The problems that felt enormous begin to feel not solved exactly, but scaled, placed in a context large enough to hold them without being crushed by them. This is not a coincidence. This is not simply the psychological effect of fresh air and darkness. This is the stars doing what they were made to do. This is the night fulfilling the purpose God built into it when He scattered those first lights across the darkness on the 4th day of creation. The night was designed to make you small in the best possible way, to gently, tenderly relieve you of the burden of being the center of everything, to remind you that there is a God whose understanding has no limit, whose mind contains the number and the name of every star, and that this same God knows you, sees you, and has not let you go. So tonight, wherever you are, however your day has gone, whatever is sitting heavy in your chest or circling in your mind, I want to invite you to do something that people have been doing under this same sky since the beginning. Look up. Or if you can't look up, just imagine it. The sky above you. Right now. Even through the ceiling. Even through the clouds. Even through the glow of the city. The stars are there, moving through their ancient, ordered courses, burning with light that has been traveling toward this moment for longer than you can imagine. You are not alone under that sky. You never have been. Let your breathing slow. Let your body remember that it is held by something larger than your own effort. The stars are doing their work tonight. The faithful, unhurried, beautiful work they were made for. And you are doing yours. You are resting under a sky full of light, in a darkness that was made for you. His name was Eli. He was not a prophet. He was not a king, not a priest, not anyone whose name would be written down in the great genealogies or remembered in the songs that mothers sang to their children by the fire. He was a shepherd, a young one, perhaps 17 or 18, with calloused hands and dust in the creases of his sandals, and the particular kind of tiredness that settles into the body of someone who has been walking since before dawn. He worked the hill country west of Bethlehem, in the years before the great kings, when the land of Israel was still finding its shape, and ordinary people lived ordinary lives between the large events of history. His father had been a shepherd before him, his grandfather before that. There was a whole vocabulary in his family for the life of open fields and rocky slopes and animals that needed watching. A language of seasons and weather and the particular sounds a flock makes when it is calm versus when something in the dark has made it uneasy. Tonight, the flock was calm. They had settled on a broad, gentle slope just before sunset, the way sheep do when the evening is mild and the grass has been good. Eli had counted them twice. The habit of every shepherd. The same way you check a door lock twice, not because you don't trust yourself, but because the habit lives in your hands, and your hands want to be sure. All present. All settled. The dogs lay at the edges of the flock, ears angled toward the dark in that alert but resting posture that meant nothing wrong yet. But we are paying attention. Eli sat with his back against the smooth rock that had been holding the warmth of the day and was now releasing it slowly, the way stones do. Like a kindness they had been saving up. He pulled his outer cloak around his shoulders. He tilted his head back, and the sky opened above him like something that had been waiting all day to show him what it really was. He had seen the sky 10,000 times. More. Since childhood. Since the first night his father had taken him out to sit with the flock and had pointed up and said, "Those are the lights God set in the heavens to govern the night." Since that night, he had seen this sky more times than he could count. But some nights the sky is just the sky, and some nights it becomes something else. Tonight was one of the second kind. Maybe it was the particular clarity of the air. A dry, cool clarity that only comes in certain seasons. when the wind has swept the sky clean and left it polished and exact. Maybe it was the position of the moon, which was setting early and taking its ambient glow with it, leaving the stars to speak without competition. Maybe it was simply that Eli was tired enough, and still enough, and had been carrying something heavy enough for long enough that his defenses were down and the beauty could actually get in. He lay back on the grass, his cloak spread beneath him, and he let the sky have his full attention. For the first time in a long time, he did not immediately fill the silence with thought. He just looked. He had been carrying something for several weeks. His younger brother, the quick laughing one, the one who had always been better with words and worse with directions, the one who could charm a stubborn goat into cooperation simply by talking to it. His younger brother had gotten sick in the early autumn. A fever that came and went, and then came back one final time and did not go. He had been buried in the village cemetery on a gray morning while Eli was still 20 miles away with the flock. Unreachable, unknowing. By the time Eli returned and his mother told him, the Shiva had already been observed. The community had already gathered and grieved and begun to disperse back into ordinary life. And Eli had stood in his family's courtyard holding this information. Your brother is gone, and had not known what to do with it. He had gone back to the flock because the flock needed watching. Because grief does not excuse the sheep from needing water. Because sometimes the only thing you know how to do is the thing your hands already know. But he carried it. Every day, across the hills and the valleys and the rocky paths, he carried it. The particular weight of an absence that should not have been there. The particular silence of a laugh he kept almost hearing in moments of quiet, and then realizing again, with a small and persistent shock, that he would not be hearing it anymore. Lying on his back beneath the stars that night, Eli did not pray. Not formally. He did not fold his hands or turn toward Jerusalem or arrange his thoughts into the proper structure of petition and praise. He simply looked up at what God had made, and he felt, for the first time in weeks, that something in him was slightly less clenched. The stars did not explain anything. They offered no answers to the questions that had been sitting at the back of his throat, like something he could not quite swallow. They did not tell him why the fever had come, or why his brother had been the one to get it, or what God intended by taking someone so young and so full of laughter out of a world that already had too little of both. The stars said nothing about any of that. But they said something else. In the wordless way that very large and very ancient things communicate with very small and very present ones. They said, we were here before this grief. We will be here after it. And the God who placed us here has not looked away from you. Not once. Not for a single moment of any of these long weeks of walking and counting and carrying. There is a kind of comfort that does not resolve anything. It does not fix the problem or answer the question or fill the absence. It simply comes alongside and says, you are not alone in this. Someone is here. This is the comfort the stars gave Eli that night. It is the same comfort they have given to shepherds and wanderers and grieving people and wakeful people, and people who have run out of words for what they are feeling. Across every century since God first scattered them across the dark. They don't explain. They accompany. And sometimes, more often than we admit, in a culture that prizes explanation above almost everything else, accompaniment is exactly what is needed. Not an answer, a presence. As the night deepened, Eli's breathing slowed. The rock behind him held its warmth. The flock breathed in its collective, unhurried rhythm. The sound of animals deeply, trustingly asleep. One of the dogs shifted and resettled. Somewhere in the middle distance, a night bird made its single. Liquid call and then went quiet. Eli watched a particular cluster of stars, a group his father had called the Sisters. 7 stars, so close together, they looked almost like a single smudge of light, if you didn't look carefully, but resolved into 7 distinct, individual lights if you let your eyes relax and your focus soften. 7 separate lights, all moving together, all occupying the same corner of the sky, all part of the same cluster, even though each one was its own sun, its own burning, its own light source, separated from its neighbors by distances so vast they had no human measure. Together, separate, both at once. He thought of his brother. He thought of himself. He thought of whatever it meant for a person to be gone from a place, and yet somehow still present in every corner of it. In the particular way a voice had of rising at the end of a sentence, in the memory of a specific laugh, in the way certain words now felt strange in Eli's mouth because they were words he had always said to someone who was no longer there to receive them. He didn't have a theology for this. He was a shepherd, not a teacher, but lying under those stars, watching the sisters move their slow arc across the darkness. He felt something he would not have had words for, even if someone had asked him to explain it. Something like held. The Psalms that would be written by David, a shepherd himself, from these same hills, but would later give language to exactly this feeling. Psalm 139, which begins with the overwhelming realization that God knows everything about you. You're sitting down and you're rising up. Your thoughts from far away. Every word before it reaches your tongue ends not in terror at being so thoroughly known, but in rest. Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, if I settle on the far side of the sea, even there, your hand will guide me. Your right hand will hold me fast. David wrote these words under the same sky Eli lay beneath, probably from a similar hillside, probably with the same smell of sheep and night air and cooling stone around him. And what he was describing was not a theological proposition, but a personal discovery. The discovery that the God who made the stars also made him, and that neither the height of the sky, nor the depth of the grief, nor the distance of the far side of the sea could put him outside the reach of a hand, that would not let him go. Your right hand will hold me fast. Not will point me in the right direction. Not will solve my problems from a comfortable distance. Will hold me. The grip of something stronger than my own strength. The steadiness of someone who does not let go when the night gets long. Sometime in the deep middle of the night, that hour past midnight, when the sky has fully turned and new constellations have risen to replace the ones that have set, Eli slept. He did not decide to sleep. He did not perform any particular ritual of relaxation or attempt to clear his mind through force of will. He simply lay there under the stars, breathing the clean night air, listening to his flock's quiet breathing. And at some point, the transition happened the way it always does when you stop fighting it. Softly, without announcement, without a clear before and after. He was awake, and then he was not. And the stars continued their slow, faithful circuit above him, indifferent to the exact moment of his crossing, not needing to witness it, simply there, as they had been before he lay down and would be when he woke. In the morning, he would still have his grief. The absence of his brother would still be an absence. The questions would still be unanswered. The world would still require walking and counting and the daily labor of keeping things alive. But something in him would be slightly different, slightly more rested, slightly more able to carry what he was carrying. Because he had spent a night under a sky full of the faithful. Unhurried evidence of a God who decorates the dark with light and calls it good. He had not solved anything. He had simply rested under the stars, in the care of the one who made them. And that, on that particular night, was enough. Enough for Eli. Enough, perhaps, for you. Whatever you are carrying into this night, whatever grief or question or unanswered longing has followed you into the dark, you do not have to resolve it before you sleep. You do not have to arrive at peace through the door of understanding. Sometimes peace arrives first, and understanding, if it comes at all, comes later, in the daylight, after you have rested. The stars above you right now are the same stars that kept Eli company on that hillside. The God who placed them there is the same God who is present in this room, in this quiet, in this darkness that was made for rest. You are held, even now, even here. Let your eyes grow heavy. Let your thoughts slow. The way Eli slowed, not through effort, but through surrender. The flock is calm. The dogs are watchful. The rock is warm. There is nothing required of you in this moment, except to receive what the night was made to give. Rest, under the stars, in the hands that will not let you go. Let's be honest with each other for a moment, because this is the chapter that is actually about you. Not about Eli on his hillside. Not about the first evening in Genesis. Not about the ancient shepherds who read the stars like a second language. This chapter is about the specific, particular, very modern experience of lying in the dark and being unable to sleep. You know what I'm talking about. The way the mind, which was perfectly willing to be distracted all day, suddenly becomes extraordinarily focused the moment you lie down. The way the ceiling becomes a screen onto which your thoughts project themselves with an enthusiasm they never show during the hours when you could actually do something about any of them. The mental list-making, the replaying of conversations, the low-grade hum of worry that doesn't attach itself to any single thing, but distributes itself evenly across everything. Like a fog that has no particular source and no particular direction, but is simply, thoroughly, everywhere. The clock. The checking of the clock. The calculating of how many hours of sleep you will get if you fall asleep right now. Right this very moment. And the way that calculation somehow makes it even harder to fall asleep. The trying, the effortful, counterproductive, exhausting trying to sleep, which anyone who has ever done it knows is precisely the wrong approach, and yet which the sleepless mind returns to again and again, with the stubborn optimism of someone who keeps knocking on a door that is clearly not going to open. I know this. I have been here. And if you are here tonight, I want to sit with you in it for a little while before we talk about anything else. There is something important I want to say about sleeplessness. And I want to say it carefully, because it is easy to get wrong. Sleeplessness is not a spiritual failure. I say this because there is a particular kind of pain that comes from lying awake and feeling not just tired, but somehow guilty about being tired. As if the inability to sleep is evidence of insufficient faith. As if a truly trusting Christian would never lie awake, would never have a racing mind, would simply commit their way to the Lord each evening and drift off serenely into untroubled rest. That is not what Scripture actually teaches, and I think that misreading does real harm to real people in real nights. David, the man after God's own heart, the poet of the Psalms, the king who had a relationship with God so intimate and so well documented that we are still reading his journals 3,000 years later. David had sleepless nights. Psalm 22 begins in the small hours of the night with someone who feels utterly forsaken, crying out into a silence that seems to return nothing. Psalm 6 has David weeping through the night, soaking his bed with tears, worn out with groaning. Psalm 77 begins, I cried out to God for help. I cried out to God to hear me. When I was in distress, I sought the Lord. At night I stretched out untiring hands, and I would not be comforted. Untiring hands, stretched out through the night, refusing to be comforted. This is David. The same David who wrote, He makes me lie down in green pastures. The same David who wrote, In peace I will lie down and sleep. The same David the same man who also wrote this, who also knew what it was to stretch out untiring hands through a long night and feel the comfort refusing to come. Both of these are true. Both of these are in the Bible. And both of these are part of the full, honest, unsanitized picture of what a life of genuine faith actually looks like. So if you are here tonight, in the stretching out untiring hands part of the story, you are not outside the story. You are deep inside it. You are in the company of the psalmist, of the shepherd, of every person of faith who has ever loved God genuinely and still found themselves lying awake in the dark, with their mind refusing to cooperate. You are not failing. You are human. And the God who made the night made it for humans, which means He made it for people who sometimes find the night difficult. I want to talk about something that I think is at the root of many sleepless nights, including some of my own. And it is this: the refusal to release control. Not a dramatic, defiant refusal, not even a conscious one, most of the time, but a quiet, persistent, habitual insistence on remaining in charge of everything, on keeping a mental grip on all the things that could go wrong, all the things that need doing, all the things that are uncertain, as if the act of worrying about them is somehow equivalent to managing them, as if the moment you stop thinking about your problems, they will take advantage of your inattention and get worse. This is the lie that keeps so many of us awake. It is dressed up, often, as responsibility, as conscientiousness, as the reasonable behavior of a thoughtful person who takes their obligations seriously, but underneath the reasonable-sounding justifications, what it actually is, if we are honest with ourselves, is a failure of trust. A practical, moment-to-moment failure to actually believe that God is in charge of the things we are worrying about. Not a theological failure. I suspect most of us could articulate, in perfectly correct theological language, that God is sovereign, that He is in control, that He works all things together for good. We know the verses. We have said the words. We may have even experienced their truth in past seasons of our lives. But knowing something in your head and entrusting something from your hands are two entirely different actions. And in the dark, at 2 a.m, with the worry humming its low and persistent note, the gap between those two actions can feel very wide indeed. Peter, the disciple who is not known for his serenity, who was in fact known for exactly the opposite, for his impulsive, overcorrecting, deeply human tendency to lurch between confidence and panic. Peter, in his first letter, wrote 5 words that I have returned to more times than I can count in my own sleepless hours. Cast all your anxiety on Him. 5 words. And then 5 more, which are the reason for the first 5, because He cares for you. Not manage your anxiety. Not overcome your anxiety or discipline yourself out of your anxiety or feel sufficiently guilty about your anxiety that you stop having it. Cast it. The Greek word is eperipto, to throw upon, to hurl. It is not a gentle word. It is not the word you use for setting something down carefully. It is the word for the decisive, physical act of getting something off yourself and onto something else. Cast it. All of it. The worry about tomorrow. The regret about yesterday. The low-grade fear about the thing you cannot control and have been pretending to control through the mechanism of not sleeping. All of it. Hurl it onto the one who is actually capable of carrying it. Because he, and this is the part that should take your breath away, he cares for you. Not for humanity in the abstract. Not for the world in general. For you. For the specific, particular, named and known person lying here right now, in this specific darkness, with this specific collection of worries. He cares for you. There is a scene in the Gospel of Mark that I find almost unbearably comforting when I am awake in the night and my mind is doing its worst. Jesus and his disciples are crossing the Sea of Galilee in a boat. A storm comes up. A serious storm. The kind that fishermen on that lake knew to be genuinely dangerous. The kind that made experienced sailors afraid. The waves are breaking over the boat. Water is coming in. The disciples are doing everything they know how to do. And it is not enough. And they are afraid. And Jesus is asleep in the stern of the boat with his head on a cushion. With his head on a cushion. The detail is so specific, so human, so almost casually domestic. Someone took the trouble to notice and remember that Jesus had a cushion, that it feels like the gospel writer is inviting you to really picture it. The chaos of the storm, the frantically working disciples, the crashing waves and the shipping water and the fear. And in the stern, amid all of it, Jesus, asleep, with his head on a cushion. The disciples wake him. Teacher, don't you care if we drown? And Jesus, unhurried, unrattled, apparently entirely unimpressed by the chaos that has been going on around him while he slept, speaks to the wind and the waves, and there is a great calm. I love this story for many reasons, but the reason I love it most, in the context of sleepless nights, is this. Jesus was not afraid to sleep in the storm. Not because he was unaware of the storm. Not because he lacked the information to understand the danger, but because he knew who he was, and he knew whose hands the boat was in. And he knew that the storm did not change either of those things. He slept in the storm, with his head on a cushion. What would it mean for you to sleep in your storm tonight? Not to pretend the storm isn't there. Not to perform a peace you don't feel. But to make the same decision, however uncomfortable it feels, however counterintuitive it seems, to lay your head down and trust that the one who calms storms is in the boat with you, has been in the boat with you all along, is not alarmed by the waves that are alarming you, is not scrambling to find a solution to the things that feel in the dark and the sleepless hours utterly unsolvable. He is not worried about your situation. That is not because he doesn't care. We just established that he cares for you more specifically and more tenderly than you may have allowed yourself to believe. He is not worried because he can see the outcome clearly. From every angle, across every dimension of time. And he has not stopped being good. He has not stopped being good. Whatever is keeping you awake tonight, whatever the shape of your fear or your grief or your uncertainty, he has not stopped being good, and he has not let go of you. And the night that feels so long to you is not long to him. I want to offer you something practical. Not a technique, not a sleep hygiene protocol, not a list of things to do with your body. Something more like a prayer or a practice of relinquishment that has helped me on the nights when the casting felt hardest. Name the things. In the quiet, in the dark, name the things you are holding. Not to God as a formal petition, not in the language of theology, but the way you would tell a friend who was sitting right there with you. Honestly, specifically, without dressing it up. I am worried about this, but I don't know what to do about that. I am afraid of this other thing. I have been carrying this for so long that I've forgotten what it felt like not to carry it. Name the things. And then, and this is the part that requires something, requires an act of will small enough to actually be possible tonight. Make an intention to leave them named. Not solved. Not resolved. Simply placed. Like Eli placing his grief under the open sky, in the presence of a God who already knows them, who already sees them, who was already holding them before you thought to name them. You are not informing God of something he missed. You are participating in the act of trust. You are practicing the movement from your hands to his. And practice, even imperfect practice, is how trust grows. Psalm 4:2-8. And I want to end this chapter with it, because it is perhaps the most quietly radical verse in the entire Psalter. Says this: in peace I will lie down and sleep. For you alone, Lord, make me dwell in safety. Not if I solve all my problems. I will lie down in peace. Not when the situation improves. I will be able to sleep. Not once I have figured out the answer. The rest will come. In peace. Present tense. Right now. As things are. I will lie down and sleep. Not because everything is resolved. Not because the storm has passed. But because the one who makes me dwell in safety is not dependent on my circumstances being comfortable before he can do his work. He is already doing it. In the middle of the storm. In the middle of the unanswered question. in the middle of this night, this specific night, this darkness that you are in right now, you are safe. Not because your situation is safe, necessarily, but because you are held by someone for whom the word safe has a larger meaning than your circumstances can threaten. Lie down. Let your body be heavy. Let your mind stop its patrol. The night watch is not yours. It has never been yours. There is someone already watching, already present, already awake, so that you don't have to be. You can sleep. We have come a long way together tonight. We began before the beginning, in the formless, waiting dark before the first word was spoken and the first light blazed into existence. We watched the first evening fall on the first day, slow and golden and unhurried, and we heard God call it good. We stood beneath a sky being filled with stars, one by one, each one placed with the careful attention of fingers that do not rush and do not waste. We lay on a hillside with Eli, a young shepherd carrying a grief too large for his hands, and we watched the stars keep company with him through the long night. And we sat, honestly and without pretense, in the place where many of us actually are, lying awake, mind circling, wondering if peace is something that happens to other people. And now we are here, at the end, which is also, in the ancient way of counting, a beginning. Because that is what the night is. Not an ending, a beginning. The first page of tomorrow, written in dark and silence, and the slow turning of a world that has been resting every night since the very first evening fell, and God watched it happen and called it good. I want to spend this last chapter doing something a little different. I want to reframe something. Not dramatically. I am not going to tell you that everything you thought you knew about sleep was wrong, or offer you a revelation that will change everything. I want to offer something quieter than that. A shift in perspective, small enough to fit in the palm of your hand, but large enough, if you let it, to change the way this night feels. We tend to think of sleep as something we do, an activity, a task, something to accomplish, to achieve, to succeed or fail at. We talk about getting sleep as if sleep is a resource we have to go out and acquire. We talk about trying to sleep, which already contains within it the seeds of its own failure. Because sleep is one of the few things in human experience that genuinely cannot be forced. We talk about sleep debt, sleep hygiene, sleep goals, the language of optimization, of management, of something that requires our active participation and our conscious effort to produce. And all of that language, however well-intentioned, has quietly turned one of the most fundamental gifts of human existence into a performance, into something to be evaluated, into something we can do well or badly, something to feel accomplished about or guilty about, something that generates its own particular species of anxiety, the anxiety about not sleeping, which is one of the more cruelly ironic anxieties available to the human mind, because the very act of being anxious about not sleeping makes sleep less accessible, which generates more anxiety, which makes sleep even less accessible. And around the circle goes in the dark. What if we have been thinking about this entirely backward? What if sleep is not something you do, but something you receive? Go back to Genesis one more time. Not to the first evening, which we have already visited, but to the sixth day, the day God made human beings, and then to what comes immediately after. God creates Adam and Eve. He blesses them. He gives them the garden. He tells them they are made in His image, that they are very good, that the whole of the created order is theirs to tend and to enjoy. And then, on the very next day, the seventh day, before any of the work has really begun, before Adam has named all the animals, or tended the garden, or built anything, or achieved anything at all, God rests, and He invites the human beings He has just made to rest with Him. Think about what this means for the theology of rest. The first full day of human existence. The very first day that Adam and Eve were alive and conscious and present in the world was a Sabbath, a day of rest. They did not earn the rest by working first. They did not rest because they had completed their tasks. They rested because God rested, and they were made in His image, and rest was part of the image. Rest is not the reward for work well done. Rest is the foundation on which the work is built. This is the gift that has been given to you every single night since you were born. Not as a reward for having been productive enough. Not as a prize for having managed your anxiety well enough, or trusted God thoroughly enough, or resolved all your outstanding issues before lying down. Simply as a gift, as part of the design, as something woven into the fabric of what you are. A creature made in the image of a God who rests, living in a world that was built to rest, in a body that was made to need rest. The night is not asking anything of you. It is offering something to you. I want to tell you something about your body that I find quietly extraordinary. While you sleep tonight, if you let yourself sleep, when you let yourself sleep, your body will do things that it cannot do while you are awake. Things that require the specific, protected conditions of sleep to happen at all. Your brain will process the experiences of the day, sorting through what matters and what doesn't, consolidating memory, making connections between things that seemed unrelated when you were conscious. Problems you could not solve while awake will be quietly worked on by parts of your mind that only become fully active when the conscious, effortful, anxious part of you steps back and lets them do their work. Your body will repair itself. Cells will be restored. The immune system will do some of its most important work. Growth hormone, released primarily during sleep, will tend to the 1,000 small repairs that a day of being alive in a physical body requires. Your nervous system, which has been in some degree of activation all day, responding to the stimulations and demands and low-grade stresses of ordinary life, will finally be allowed to return to baseline, to remember what it feels like not to be braced for anything. None of this requires your help. None of it requires your oversight, your management, your conscious participation. In fact, all of it requires the opposite. It requires you to stop managing, to step back from oversight, to release the grip of conscious control and allow the body that God designed, with its extraordinary, intricate, self-healing wisdom, to do what it was made to do. Sleep is not passive. Sleep is the most active thing your body does that doesn't require your involvement. All you have to do, the only thing being asked of you, is to get out of the way and let it happen. There is a parable in the Gospel of Mark, quiet and easy to overlook between the more dramatic stories, that has always struck me as a kind of theology of sleep. Jesus says, "The kingdom of God is like a man who scatters seed on the ground, night and day. Whether he sleeps or stays awake, the seed sprouts and grows, though he does not know how. All by itself, the soil produces grain. Whether he sleeps or stays awake, the seed grows. The farmer's wakefulness contributes nothing to the growth. His sleeping takes nothing from it. The process that is happening beneath the surface of the soil, the invisible, mysterious, unhurried process of a seed becoming a plant, continues regardless of whether the farmer is watching it anxiously or sleeping peacefully in his bed. There are things in your life right now, relationships, situations, prayers, longings, that are like seeds in the ground. Things that are in process. Things that are moving toward an outcome. Things that are being tended by a God who works in the night as well as the day, who does not require your conscious oversight to keep the process moving. Things that will grow whether you sleep or stay awake. Your staying awake does not accelerate them. Your sleeping does not abandon them. They are in His hands, and His hands work through the night. I want to offer you a different way to think about the moment of falling asleep. Not as a loss of consciousness, not as a surrender of control, with all the anxiety that word carries. Not as a gap in your existence, something to be endured until morning brings you back to yourself. What if the moment of falling asleep is an act of faith? Every night, when you finally let go, when the grip of wakefulness finally relaxes and your mind stops its patrol and your body stops its bracing, and you cross that soft threshold into sleep, you are doing something that is, at its core, an act of trust. You are entrusting yourself to a night you cannot supervise. you are releasing the hours between now and morning into hands that are not yours. You are saying, with your body, if not with your words, I believe that the world will still be here when I wake up. I believe that the things I am worried about will not become unmanageable while I am not watching them. I believe that there is someone awake in the night who does not need my help. Every night, without realizing it, without meaning to be theological about it, you have been practicing faith in your sleep for your entire life. The only question is whether you can let the practice become conscious, whether you can bring your mind into alignment with what your body already knows how to do. The releasing, the trusting, the receiving of rest as a gift rather than a performance. And so here is what I want to leave you with. As this night deepens around you and the story finds its quiet end, the night is a gift, not a gap, not a loss, not dead time between the days that actually matter. A gift designed by the same God who designed the stars and the evening and the rhythm of work and rest that has been built into creation since the very first day. A gift given not because you earned it or because your day went well, or because you managed to keep all your anxiety adequately contained. Given simply because you are here, and you are His, and He is good. The darkness around you right now is the same darkness God named on the first day and called into His creation deliberately, intentionally, with full knowledge of what He was doing. The quiet is the same quiet that has settled over every human being who has ever lived. Every night of every life, since the beginning. The stars above you, even if you cannot see them through the ceiling, even if the city glow has dimmed them to invisibility, are burning with the same patient light they have always burned with. In the darkness, saying the same thing they have always said. He is here. He has not forgotten. You are known. Let me walk you into sleep the way the night itself would walk you in. If the night had words, begin with your breath, not controlling it, just noticing it, the way it comes without your asking, the way your body has been breathing all day, all your life, without requiring your conscious instruction. Your lungs know what to do. Your heart knows what to do. The 10,000 processes that keep you alive and functioning are continuing right now, quietly and faithfully, without your help. You are being taken care of. Even now, even before you sleep. Let your awareness move slowly through your body, the way the first evening moved slowly across the first earth. Not rushing, not demanding, simply present. Notice your feet, distant and relaxed. Your legs, heavy against whatever is beneath you. The length of your back, releasing its held tension into the surface that is supporting you. Your hands, open now, palms upward, no longer gripping anything. Let your shoulders drop. They've been carrying something all day. Most of us carry things in our shoulders without realizing it. A physical archive of the tension we've accumulated since morning. Let them drop. Let them find how far down they can actually go when you stop holding them up. Your jaw. Unclench it. If it's clenched, let your tongue rest in the bottom of your mouth. Let the muscles around your eyes go soft. You don't need to see anything right now. The night has that covered. Think of Eli on his hillside, eyes growing heavy under the slow arc of the sisters. Think of the first earth on its first evening, settling into the dark with the wordless trust of something that has not yet learned to be afraid. Think of Jesus asleep in the stern of the boat, head on a cushion, entirely at peace in the middle of the storm, because he knew whose hands the world was in. Those hands are around you right now. Not metaphorically, or not only metaphorically. There is a real and present and attentive God who is with you in this room, in this night, in this particular darkness, with its particular quiet and its particular weight of things you are carrying. He sees you. He knows you. He has been watching over you since before you were born, and he will be watching over you through every hour of this night, and he will be there when the morning comes. You do not have to watch over yourself tonight. That job is taken. The morning will come. It always does. The light will return, the way it returned on every morning since the first morning. Faithful and unhurried and exactly on time. The day will begin again, with its work and its demands and its opportunities and its complications. The seeds that are growing in the dark will still be growing. The prayers that are being answered will still be being answered. The God who tends all of it will still be tending all of it. But that is morning's story, and morning will tell it. Right now, it is night, and the night has only one thing to say to you. The same thing it has been saying since the first evening fell on the first day of the world, and God looked at it and called it good. Rest. You are safe. You are held. You are known. Rest. The stars are keeping watch. The night is doing its ancient, faithful work. And you who have been carrying so much, for so long, through so many long and complicated days, you are allowed, finally, completely, without condition or qualification, to lay it all down. Close your eyes. Receive the gift. Let the night hold you. This is where the story ends, and where your rest begins.